Karen rammed our gate with her SUV, then the Secret Service stepped out. You ever see someone so sure they're in charge, so drunk on their own self-importance, that they crash headfirst into reality? Literally, I watched it happen from 20 feet away. And let me tell you, when two agents in black suits stepped out from behind the busted gate Karen had just slammed through with her SUV, all that fake HOA power she was swinging like a sword evaporated like cheap perfume in the Arkansas heat. Yeah, that happened. Part 1. Let me start with the sound. It wasn't a crash, not exactly not like in movies. It was more like a crunch, sharp and wet, followed by a low metallic groan as the iron bent, buckled, and finally gave out. That's how Karen made her entrance. Through my front gate, behind the wheel of a silver Range Rover with vanity plates that read KAREKAREN. 6 months ago, I left D.C. for good. After 15 years working logistics and counterintelligence contracts for the Department of Homeland Security, I was done, burned out, dead tired. Divorce finalized. My dad passed, and suddenly the city didn't feel like home anymore. So I bought 80 acres of land in the Ozarks. Pine trees, red clay roads, deer trails, a crooked old barn that swayed when the wind kicked up just right. I rebuilt the gate, strung barbed wire, put in gravel. It was supposed to be quiet. It was supposed to be mine. I didn't plan on running into a woman like Karen. First time I saw her, she was walking her dog, if you can call a trembling, white puffball a dog. Thing looked like a mop and barked like a smoke alarm. She stood at the edge of my property line, squinting at my mailbox like it personally offended her. "You gonna repaint that?" she asked. Without even saying hello, I wiped my hands on my jeans. "Excuse me. Your mailbox. HOA guidelines say dark green or brown only." "That's what?" "Bronze," I blinked. "This is county land. There's no HOA." Karen smiled. "The way sharks do. There is now." Turns out Karen had taken it upon herself to reorganize the hollow. She printed a 30-page booklet that looked like it had been stolen from a retirement home binder. Inside were things like lawn growth standards, max height 3.5 inches, gate aesthetic compliance, vehicle type permits, no commercial trucks allowed. She even had a logo, a pine cone inside a triangle. Looked vaguely cult-ish. I found out later she made it in Microsoft Paint. At first, I ignored her, but then came the notices, slapped on my gate, folded into Ziploc bags in the mailbox. Threats of fines, hearings, community repossession. All of it nonsense, but she didn't stop. She harassed my delivery guy, stood in the middle of my driveway taking photos of my motion cameras, even accused my niece of unauthorized entry when she came to visit from college. And when I confronted her, "You'll see," she said, with that same tight smile. "We have ways of handling stubborn cases." It was a Thursday, mid-April. Birds were loud, pollen thicker than sin in the air. I was in the barn, checking inventory for a quiet little side gig I'd picked up logistics consulting for an off-the-books federal team stationed nearby. Nothing glamorous. A few encrypted comms units, some non-lethal kits, and one very serious-looking black SUV they parked on my back lot behind a privacy fence. Just as I stepped out with a cup of coffee, I heard it, the sound of an engine revving, too close. Then the crunch. I turned the corner and there it was, my wrought iron gate, folded like a paperclip, and Karen, still in the driver's seat, horn blaring, yelling something about trespassing, government vehicles, and restoring private order. See? What Karen didn't realize, what she couldn't have known, is that two of the people inside that SUV weren't just federal contractors. They were Secret Service, real ones. They'd been temporarily stationed in the area for reasons I can't legally explain, monitoring regional threat patterns and using my property quiet, private, secure as a safe house relay site. And when she rammed that gate, she triggered a silent perimeter alert. Seconds later, the back door of the SUV popped open, and out stepped two men in black suits, earpieces in, hands near their belts. Karen froze. Then her eyes widened. "Wait, wait, Is this part two? You know that moment when someone realizes they messed up so bad, there's no coming back. I watched it happen in real time. Karen's SUV was still hissing smoke. Her bumper crumpled around the iron gate she'd just destroyed. But that wasn't what made her go pale. It was the two men standing in front of her. Black suits, impassive faces, Secret Service earpieces. One of them slowly lifted his hand to his jacket, not a weapon. Just a badge, but the moment it flashed, Karen's whole persona cracked like glass under a boot. I didn't know, she stammered, climbing out of the Range Rover. I thought this is private land. That truck doesn't belong here. The taller agent said nothing. He just took out a small tablet and started scanning the area. The shorter one stepped toward her, calm but cold. You rammed a federal gate, he said, voice flat. Please step away from the vehicle. Karen scoffed, hands flailing, trying to reclaim the upper hand. I'm the acting compliance officer for this region's HOA. That gate was in violation of Code 2B unauthorized structure. He raised an eyebrow. There's no HOA here. She pulled a plastic badge out of her purse like it was a magic wand. Yes, there is. Blackberry Ridge Rural Oversight Committee. I formed it last spring. We have bylaws. The agent didn't even look at it. That's impersonating a governing body. And just like that click, cuffs on her wrists, Karen shrieked. They weren't planning on arresting her formally. Not yet. They just needed to detain her while they investigated the breach. I stayed quiet while they moved her to sit in the back seat of the SUV, door left cracked open for air. The taller agent, whose name I later learned was Marcus, came over to me. You know her? He asked. Too well, I said. She's been trying to run this area like a dictatorship for months. Fake HOA, phony fines, trespassing threats. He nodded grimly. We figured something was off. She's been spotted near 3 different surveillance points. She has photos of our perimeter markers. My blood ran cold. Wait. What he handed me a manila folder they'd pulled from her back seat. Inside were maps, real ones marked in red. My land. My neighbor's land. Even the county's infrastructure layout. Every driveway. Every gate. Labeled and numbered. Where'd she get these? I asked. We don't know, Marcus said, but we intend to find out. Later that evening, I went through the contents of the folder again, this time with my laptop open and a bourbon in my hand. She hadn't just mapped the land. She'd written a full proposal for expanding her HOA authority to cover the entire valley. She called it the Order of Blackberry Ridge. It was full of insane mandates banning non-native dogs over 30 lbs, requiring decorative uniformity and fencing. A list of pre-approved political signs allowed during election cycles. A tax proposal, yes, a tax on firewood bundles sold without committee oversight. I couldn't believe it. But the scariest part, there were names. Other people, neighbors. Some had signed on. I called John Perkins the next morning. He runs the feed store 2 miles down the road. Always had a laugh like a rusty tractor and a no-nonsense attitude. You see this, I asked, forwarding a scan of Karen's fake charter. He cursed. Son of a... She told me it was just a cleanup group. I gave her $50 for new trail signs. Turns out he wasn't alone. Karen had gone door to door last fall, pitching her beautification board to retirees, folks who didn't have internet, families too busy to check the fine print. She'd collected nearly $6,000 in dues from 22 properties. And when I started calling around, the floodgates opened. One neighbor, Martha, had gotten a letter saying her garden disrupted aesthetic flow and was told to remove her tomato trellises. A veteran named Tom was fined $150 for parking a trailer on communal sightlines. A single mom had her driveway blocked by a pile of brush Karen claimed was natural fencing. But nobody had dared push back until she rammed my gate and triggered a federal response. That changed everything. I don't know who tipped them off, probably one of the agents, but by Sunday morning, the story had broken. The local paper ran the headline, Woman Crashes SUV into Private Gate, Secret Service Involved. It spread fast. Reddit got a hold of it. Then Facebook, then TikTok. The memes were brutal. Karen screaming behind bars made of HOA bylaws, side by sides of her Range Rover and the actual security gate she mangled. A remix video of her shouting, "I am the committee," auto-tuned into a club beat. And the comments plot twist is she's not just HOA Karen, she's QHOA Non. Imagine trying to find the Secret Service. If HOA power were a drug, she overdosed. She became infamous, and the town started turning on her. Part 3. After the story went viral, Karen disappeared. Not literally, she still lived at the edge of the ridge, still drove that dented Range Rover with the busted front end covered in duct tape and denial, but she stopped patrolling. No more laminated notices on gates. No more morning inspections. No more standing at the farmer's market in her fake badge, handing out HOA literature like it was gospel. But that didn't mean she was done. Karen was regrouping. And like a cornered animal, she was about to lash out one last time. As news spread, most people distanced themselves, but not everyone. There were still a handful of true believers, people Karen had sweet-talked, manipulated, or outright scared into compliance. Folks who felt invested, either because they'd paid her dues, or because backing down would mean admitting they'd been duped. The loudest of them was a man named Rick Madsen. Rick had a YouTube channel where he filmed himself doing Second Amendment audits in Dollar General parking lots. He wore wraparound sunglasses, fingerless gloves, and posted about HOA tyranny and sovereign land stewardship. He made a video titled, "Karen Did Nothing Wrong. The Deep State Set Her Up in It. He called me a federal puppet, claimed the Secret Service had planted the SUV, and said Karen was the last line of defense against rural moral decay." I would have laughed if it hadn't gotten 30,000 views in a day. But Karen made her real move quietly. Through the county board, I got the letter 2 days later. Certified mail, thick envelope, county seal. Inside a formal petition from the Blackberry Ridge Oversight Committee requesting a hearing to recognize their authority as a governing body under Arkansas Property Code 12-141B, some obscure clause about voluntary community management zones. It was signed by 14 people, and right there at the bottom, in Karen's neat cursive acting executive officer, Blackberry Ridge Civic Trust. I stared at it for a long time. Then I called every person on that list. Half of them didn't even know they'd been listed. I thought that was just a neighborhood Facebook group. Said one. I told her I was busy. She said she'd handle it. Said another. One woman broke down crying. She said if I didn't sign, I'd be blacklisted from school volunteer days. That's when I knew it wasn't just a petty power trip. This was coordinated coercion. So I made some calls of my own. To the county, to a few journalists, and to Raina, the same tech who'd helped sweep my property weeks before. Raina, God bless her, had quietly pulled metadata from Karen's HOA emails when the Secret Service let her glance through the confiscated laptop. Turned out, Karen wasn't just running a fake HOA, she was also running a side hustle. She'd been pitching rural land developers across 3 states, offering to establish governance and enforcement policy for new plots before they sold. Her emails were full of lines like, "We can pre-organize communities with aesthetic compliance controls before first buyer move-in." Most rural buyers don't read the bylaws. Once they sign, we own the aesthetic narrative. It wasn't just HOA cosplay anymore. It was real estate fraud. We leaked them anonymously to the local paper. They ran with it, and Karen's world burned. The county scheduled a public hearing to review the petition. They expected a dozen attendees. 87 people showed up. Farmers, retirees, teachers, veterans, even kids with homemade signs that said, "My goat is not in violation." Karen walked in late, dressed like she was going to church, navy blazer, hair pulled tight, a clipboard in hand. She still tried to take charge, tried to argue her case, tried to hand out printed agendas. But the moment the county clerk pulled up the emails on the projector and read the subject line, "How to Enforce Aesthetic Discipline," without elected oversight, it was over. Dead quiet. Then a woman in the back whispered, "You sold us," and the whole room turned on her. Karen tried one last Hail Mary. She filed a restraining order against me, claiming I had hacked her files and coerced public sentiment through smear campaigns. She brought it to court with a printed screenshot of a meme someone else had posted Karen in a throne made of HOA violations. The judge threw it out in 5 minutes and fined her $500 for wasting the court's time. Karen's empire crumbled not with gunfire or flames, but with silence. The kind of silence that creeps in after a storm, tears the roof off a house. And all that's left to do is look around and ask yourself, how the hell did we let it get this far? 2 weeks after the hearing, the county commissioner's office sent a notice to every home in Blackberry Ridge. The Blackberry Ridge Oversight Committee is not recognized as a legal or enforceable entity. Any past claims, fines, or dues issued under its name are hereby voided. Residents may seek civil relief for damages. People frame that letter. Literally, I saw one at the gas station pinned next to a jar of pickled eggs and a lottery ticket machine. Another was taped to the church bulletin board under a sign that read, "No HOA, here just good neighbors." Karen, meanwhile, vanished. Her house went dark. Her Range Rover disappeared from the driveway. Rumor had it she moved in with a cousin in Little Rock. Some said she was filing bankruptcy. Others said she was trying to start a private security consultancy. Nobody really knew. Nobody really cared. The feds didn't make a show of it. They didn't want headlines or photo ops. But I know because I was copied on the documents that Karen was being audited for fraud, wire abuse, impersonation of a government entity, and misrepresentation in a real estate transaction. Civil lawsuits followed. 4 neighbors sued her for damages. 2 won settlements. 1 elderly couple got their full dues returned, plus attorney's fees. Another man had his fence rebuilt on the county's dime after proving Karen had moved his survey markers. One small case after another. Paper justice. But it mattered. After the collapse, we held a gathering. Not a town hall, not a protest. Just a barbecue. Someone grilled brisket. Someone else brought homemade ice cream. Kids ran barefoot through the same trails Karen once called non-compliant pedestrian zones. We laughed about it. We healed. We decided together to form something real. Not a governing body, a watchdog council, voluntary, transparent. We called it the Hollow Accord, a loose group of neighbors who promised to stand up against false authority, protect privacy, and make sure nobody ever took power without being voted into it again. I didn't want to be part of it at first. Too many scars, too much fire under my skin. But they asked me to write the mission statement. So I did. And this is what it said: power, when unearned, is just a weapon. Community, when honest, is the only shield we'll ever need. It was 6 months later. I was at the county fair, sipping cold lemonade and watching my niece try to win a stuffed animal from a rigged ring toss, when I saw her, Karen, wearing sunglasses too big for her face, standing near the corn dogs. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She just turned and walked the other way. And I let her go. Because what she feared most, what she had tried to control and contain, was already happening around her. People living free. Without her permission. My gate. We rebuilt it. The whole community showed up. Welders, carpenters, teenagers with too much energy and not enough sense. They brought scrap metal and paint and stories and laughter. And when it was done, we mounted a new sign on it. Simple, iron letters cut by hand. This land stands free. Not no trespassing. Not private property. Just a statement, a reminder. For anyone else who might one day forget what freedom really looks like, let me tell you something. Real tyranny doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears a name tag, or hands you a clipboard, or prints up rules and tapes them to your door. Sometimes it smiles. And if you're not paying attention, if you're too tired, too distracted, or too polite to question it, it takes root, and it grows. But here's the thing, tyranny shrivels when people tell the truth out loud. It dies in the face of laughter. It collapses when we stop complying out of habit. So speak up, push back, ask questions, because the moment you surrender your voice to someone like Karen, you give away more than silence. You give away your place in the community that could have stood beside you. What would you have done if Karen rammed your gate? Have you ever faced false authority in your community? Share your story. Speak your truth. Let others know you're not alone. End.